Good morning, everyone. This is Luda Kopikina with GAI Insights, where we rate daily AI news, essential, important, and optional. You can follow along with the articles that we are going to be reviewing at GAI Insights/articles. I have John, Adam, Tim, and Ankash today, a tremendous crew to give you a whole bunch of opinions about the articles that we will be reviewing, and different ones too. So please comment along and tell us what you think. Okay, let's start with the first article, Ankash.
Thanks, Luda. So the first one that we have for today comes from MIT Sloan Management Review, and here Randy Bean and Thomas H. Davenport they talk about 5 trends in AI and data science for 2025.
Since these two are our friends, right? We know them quite well. I asked John to review it. What do you think, John?
Yeah, I was gonna give this an important. It's pretty, well as Tom and Randy do. It's pretty well researched. Randy just finished his, I think it's 12th or 14th AI leader, chief data officer survey that he does every year, and really, so some really good data from 125 different companies. The 5 findings I think are interesting. I think there's pretty practical. At the same time, I don't think it's kind of doesn't push our thinking forward a whole lot. So I think it's kind of yeoman's kind of article. Useful. I think for the AI leader, not essential, but well constructed, and things that people really do need to worry about. And Tom has quite a big following, as does Randy. So I think organizationally too, it's helpful because they're seen as real experts in the area.
And it puts a little bit of a critical eye on where AI is going and where it is specifically, and especially Tom's beef about data, and it comes through here. What did you think about this, Adam?
I see John's point, and I think it's probably, using Tim's nomenclature, a lower back pocket important. I was leaning towards optional. I thought that there wasn't a ton of insight, as John said quite well. It didn't really push it forward, even though it's forward looking. And I think they're mostly on the mark. I fundamentally disagree with their very first premise, right? With his, as they say at the end of the last paragraph about the agentic AI. They say that they don't foresee agents having a major impact on the human workforce in 2025, and I absolutely think they're wrong on that one. Yeah. But I've seen some of the use cases around just Microsoft and Accenture, and the ways that they're enabling what they call the citizen developers at scale. And you're going to have millions, hundreds of millions of people who are using agents and building their own agents, and are going to be enabled, empowered in the year ahead in ways that are going to fundamentally shift business as we know it. Yeah. So I disagree with them on the first point. I think overall they make some good points, and it's worth having a look at. So I could support it important.
It's one of the great ironic things about what you just said, Adam, is I don't know if you're aware, Tom wrote a whole book on citizen developers.
I didn't know.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Tim, what did you think?
Agents too.
Important going. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm fine with important. I think. Again, we forget the professor-student problem, that we're in this stuff every day. And even the AI leader in a company doesn't get that much chance to poke their head up. So while this is, as has been said, it's not earth-shattering. I think it's a good refresher. And I think, you need to see these things over and over again. We see them every day. So we see them over and over on a daily basis. But an AI leader doesn't see them that often. So I think it's worth and important.
Okay, let's put it as important. I think it's thought-provoking. It has things that people would not necessarily agree with, and that's good. All right, important it is. Let's proceed, Ankash.
Okay, so this next one is about a smart ring, which is a chatbot trained on medical journals.
Yeah, this is an interesting model here. What did you think about this, Tim?
I think it is really interesting. I'm going to rate it optional because it was heavy on the promo and light on the detail. Even the title is a little bit of clickbait. It's not about the ring. It's about the model they developed. They claim, and it's all assertions. There's really no demo. It's not out. People who have access to it have to buy the ring. So it's pretty walled garden, as we say. And, they claim that they've trained this thing on highly regarded articles from medical journals and constrained all the thinking to that. So this is kind of a RAG thing. And that's great if it works. They claim it doesn't hallucinate. That's also great if it works. And it's a product announcement and a promo from CES. So I'd say really interesting if you're interested in this kind of stuff, but optional.
Okay, optional. I actually bought a RAG for the nutrition information in a similar way, but in vertical. What our problem was that in many domains, the scientific articles are not very well developed. There's not that much knowledge. And so the bot essentially says, many times you ask it, it says, oops, I wouldn't tell you because I have no clue. Here's the article.
There's also lots of disagreement, especially in early stage research articles. Exactly. And even in well-developed therapies in medicine, because it's so complicated, there's lots of disagreement. So then the question is, well, okay, if there are 3 articles with 3 different viewpoints, is it going to give you all 3? So lots of questions. Really interesting if it works, but lots of questions.
Interesting. So optional. John, Adam, any thoughts?
Big O.
Big O. Okay. Optional it is. Let's proceed.
So the next one is from Lenny's newsletter, and it talks about a guide to AI prototyping for product managers.
Yeah, it goes 9 yards, tells you how to do, how to put together a prototype. And Adam, you've been telling us all how to do it. So what did you think about this?
I was on the fence between optional and important. I think I'm leaning towards important because it does a good job of portraying the entire landscape from the chatbots like Claude and ChatGPT into some of the online development platforms like Replit, Bolt, V0, Lovable, and then into the ones that are integrated into your local machine. You can see it all in that chart there. And that's useful for people who are understanding this. I think it goes far beyond just product developers. And there was just a little bit of a disconnect for me. Like it gives these prompts, but the reality is, and I've done some work getting into some of these tools, it's not so cut and dry getting to the point where you can just put in a prompt. So there's this big leap between here's these tools, and then it's giving them these prompts, and the prompts it offers are fairly basic. I didn't think there was a lot of insight there. It's like, you want to make a web CRM example like eBay, and you prompt, give me a web CRM example like eBay. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm sure people could get the idea, but it didn't give me enough detail that I feel like someone who was new to this and interested could actually get started. So I was on the fence between important because it does portray the landscape well, to optional because it doesn't quite give them what they need.
Yeah, John, what did you think?
Hi, yeah, I thought that I was going to give it an important as well. It's useful. A person takes you through, as Adam says, a bunch of the critical steps, but at the same time, when you get your hands on to it, it's not quite as easy as he's saying. But I like the little tooling diagram here. From chatbots to development environments to development assistance. It's an area that I really believe executives should be delving into. So important.
Yeah,
I could almost make the case for essential, which I rarely do, but in this case, it's important for people to be aware of the everyday miracle effect. I mean, a year ago, it would have been impossible to dream of this kind of stuff. And it has lots of issues, as has been pointed out here. So it isn't really to the point of, a modern car, right? You don't even have to put the key in the vehicle anymore. You just sort of get near it. put the brake on, push a button, and everything works, and works incredibly reliably. But we're already way past Model T, if you ask me. I mean, those things were pretty funky, and you had to know a lot about cars to drive one around. And this is already beyond that. So the ability, we were just talking about citizen programming. This is it in a nutshell to me. And I think it's important for leaders to be aware of how fast it's moving. And so just as a survey of the state of the art, this is not bad. So, important is fine, but I can almost make the case for essential just because this is so important to be aware of how quickly this is moving, and the ability to create programs without programmers is moving at a pace that is hard to fathom for most people. So today it's still sort of master craftsman-y. You still have to kind of know what you're doing, but not nearly so much as you used to even a year ago. And so it's just remarkable how far it's already come. And the ability to create prototypes, to create tools that are useful for individuals is where it will start. But then the ability to scale those very rapidly will be hugely important. In fact, the big transformation to me still is if users can build prototypes, that is gold. Because that is the hardest thing to do, is extract requirements, and it's done in such a static and dead fashion still today. Figma is better because you get screenshots and a little liveliness to it. But imagine if you can just turn your users loose. And again, this reminds me of the spreadsheet. So, spreadsheets have this effect where users can create really great spreadsheets, and then somebody can look at it and say, oh, that's really helpful, and have a professional turn it into a scalable application. So that to me is a transformed model of development where you're going to have lots of people building these prototypes, and then you have the professionals, if you will, who can armor plate the security and do the things necessary. So I'm okay with important, but I can argue for essential.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can get up to essential because he doesn't talk about the points you absolutely need to talk about, because after you actually put a lot of this infrastructure together, you get what you actually do not want, and then you need to work at it, and that's not quite clear what you do, like what Adam pointed out. But it does underscore for me, it still requires quite a bit of knowledge of all these tools, and you need to put an environment together before you can get those prototypes up. So it is much, 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 much better. And for that, I think it is an important article, but we still have a lot of things to be done to automate that process and make the models to your liking that this doesn't cover. So that's why I was important. Okay, Tim, important?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Everybody okay with important?
Go for it.
Okay, important it is. Let's proceed.
Okay, the next one comes from Meta, and it talks about how Meta is retreating from fact-checking content.
Yeah, a big stir, it sounds like, in the industry. Everybody's commenting about that. But it's exactly that, what Ankash just said. It's an announcement by Meta that they are not going to be fact-checking themselves, but they will go into community type notes that X is employing. So I think it's optional, and I'm willing to be convinced to give it a different rating, but I think it's just that. What did you think, John?
I was going to go, I'm on the fence between optional and important. It's not surprising. I don't think it's going to change a lot of behavior, but then you look at the emphasis on responsible AI in any large company, and Randy Bean's recent survey says that responsible AI is still 80-90% concern, if you will, in terms of top concern for executives. And this to me is going to interplay to the extent I think this is essential if you advertise on Meta, on Facebook, and if it's a big source of customer or talent acquisition, in your business model, I think this is essential reading. So for the broad audience, I was thinking important.
Okay. Tim, what did you think?
It's hard to separate the issues here. So part of me says, yeah, this is optional because, to John's point, if you are on Facebook, it's essential because it could impact your business model, but it's mostly small businesses and Facebook that are on Facebook and Instagram. So it's not going to impact a lot of the people that we are generally looking to. And this really has absolutely nothing to do with technology. This is all about Silicon Valley becoming Donald Trump's lapdog. That's really what this is about. It's hard to separate the issues, and all of them look like they're headed that way because they're interested in money and their own success. I can give you a diatribe if you want, but even if you just look at it from corporate profit perspective, that's what they're talking about here. Meta, Microsoft, Google don't want to get broken up. They don't want oversight. They know that the Trump administration is not very favorable towards them, and this is a way to act a little bit more like X, owned by Elon Musk, who is very well favored by the Trump administration. So to me, this is lobbying. This is just lobbying 101.
Yeah, just my political views are closer to yours, Ken, but just to make the other side of the argument for our audience here, a lot of people who really felt like that the policies of the platforms were very anti right wing, if you will, and that that kind of censorship shouldn't be there, and it should be more part of free speech is having the community determine what is valuable. And so I think there are a lot of people who feel like finally Big Brother's not telling me what to say and not say.
Yeah, there's a deeper issue in terms of how speech should be handled, right? In general. Yeah, I agree. But we do also, yeah, it's a longer discussion. I'm not making the point one way or the other about whether there should or shouldn't be censorship. I'm just saying this is clearly kowtowing to an administration's desires.
Well,
If it was a different administration that was in favor of censorship, they would probably increase their censorship.
No, but again, all I'm saying is that I would say to you, to many of my friends and acquaintances, that what you just said would be a political statement, not a statement of fact.
It is, but it is the political statement. I think the whole letter and the whole presentation is a political statement. Adam, we have important and optional going on. What do you think?
This has nothing to do with generative AI. And you might think it's important for people to discuss. I've been invited to be one of the moderators on the community notes for the X platform, and I think it's phenomenal. I think they're doing a good job. Like, I've been invited and I've been participating, but I can't actually make a community note yet. All I'm allowed to do so far is review other people's community notes and give my feedback on them. So I think they actually have a really good approach in place in terms of, having the community police itself, having the community fact check and verify, and really allowing the political component to be taken out of the equation. Because it just comes back to, is this true? Is this factual? Is this correct? Does this provide good sources? That sort of thing. And it's a really powerful vehicle. And, I'm happy he's on board with it, but I think this is optional news for a busy AI leader who's trying to get from us what they have to be paying attention to.
Yeah, I
This
think
is a distraction.
Unless you're running, your business on Facebook and may be impacted by the changes, it's totally optional. And you're right; it's a good point. It has nothing to do with generative AI.
no, it's political statement. Okay, optional it is. Let's proceed. And thank you, Vivek.
The next.
Kevin. Hold on. Thank you, Vivek and Kevin. It's an interesting, thought-provoking statement, and thank you for your views on that. But yeah, it's very important. Thank you. Okay, let's proceed, Ankash. Sorry.
Yeah. So the next one is about Omi, which is a competitor to Friend, which wants to boost your productivity using AI and a brain interface.
Brain interface. What did you think about this, Adam?
This is a lot of hype and a pretty visionary idea, not something that people haven't thought of before. A slick little commercial. Actually, I wasn't that impressed by it, but it even says in the article it's unclear if the brain interface of Omi actually even works yet. But the startup is tackling a fairly simple use case to start. He wants the device to understand whether the user is talking to it or not. So it sounds like this is pretty early days. The idea is you can wear it as a pendant. It'll be context aware and it can help give you information about what's going on, but ultimately that it'll connect, through some sort of interface on the side of your head. And I'm sure there isn't a chip or something. It's just through the the electroencephalogram signals. But yeah, this is probably more marketing than real at this point.
Yep. Okay. John, Tim?
Totally optional.
Totally agree. Yeah. Humane was the last round of this, right? The little pin thing or whatever it was. Rabbit. I don't know what happened to Rabbit, which made a lot of fuss at CES last year. Remember Rabbit? Nope, nobody remembers.
Yeah, the R1.
Yeah, we remember.
You have the memory of a gnat collectively, and but this strikes me as yet another attempt at that. And the fact that they spent, I don't know what, 20% of their money on advertising, and they only had under $1 million to start with, says to me, yeah, we can see where this is headed. We'll see. Maybe one of these may work and may be interesting, but most of them look like parlor tricks to me that are, so totally optional.
Totally optional. Triple O, as Paul would say. Okay, let's proceed, Ankash.
Okay, the last one that we have for today is a research paper which talks about MetaGene1, which is a metagenomic foundation model for pandemic monitoring.
This is fascinating, from ground up, putting together the data, then pre-training it. So it's very enormous effort. What did you think about this, Tim?
I think it's great. I think it's optional for the general AI leader. It's pretty specific and technical. If you are, if you're in, the biotech area is affected by this, it's essential. And I've been saying for a long time, we've been saying collectively that life sciences is enormously impacted already by generative AI. This is another example of it. We think of large language models in terms of the languages we speak and think in, but DNA is a language, RNA is a language. These are other kinds of linguistic phenomena that can be learned by these large language models. And so there's another example of using it in a quite innovative way that could be quite valuable. I fear, without being too political, that it won't matter because we'll stop even testing wastewater pretty soon. If you don't have the data, it doesn't matter how good your monitoring tools are. And we've decided we don't care. So we aren't doing much about bird flu. I hope it doesn't become a pandemic, but we just aren't putting the effort into getting the data in. But this is a great effort at being able to use that data extremely effectively.
Yeah, so what the researchers...
But optional for the general AI.
Yeah, I agree, optional, but maybe we should state what this is about. So the researchers tested wastewater, took samples rather of wastewater, put together the pairs, RNA, DNA, 1.5 trillion of those base pairs of pathogens, right? And then they fed it into a model that they kind of created the architecture of from scratch, and specifically for this type of application. And it's 7 billion parameter model that is quite accurate in terms of its results. So it's a fascinating service to the public good, and I'm sure it will be used. But
another example too, with the right data, you don't need a lot of parameters necessarily, because it's doing a pretty good job with a 7 billion parameter model.
Yeah.
So, but that's because they had absolutely targeted data. Yeah. This is, by the way, at least in the US and in many places around the world, a primary source of data right now. In fact, pretty much the only one in many places, which is wastewater data. So it's a little bit backward looking, but actually pretty effective at catching trends early. Certainly been useful for COVID. It's the main detection we have for COVID, if anybody ever pays attention to it.
Yeah, yeah, but optional, right, for our audience. John, Adam?
Optional for sure. I just want to note, for me, in the category of everyday miracles, I mean, you think about what an incredible utility this is, where, in the service of public health and the ability to go down to the genetic level on these pathogens, that is massive if you're going to manage these things. And so the fact that you can just create this, put it out there as a public good, to me, I hope and hope to help create some, but to really push forward this notion of just how many knowledge utilities we could create that would really help society and mankind, you know.
Yeah. And it's cheap. You know, again, it doesn't even cost a lot of money, but
it's just spectacular, you know, piece of public good.
Yeah, but you do have to have the data coming in. So
well, they created the data. They created the data, and that's what's important.
Well, we have plenty of it right now. We are doing wastewater testing around the United States. Again, that's the only indications we have right now, and mostly about COVID. That's the only thing we're testing it for right now. But what this proved is you can test it for lots of stuff.
For lots of pathogens.
Well, the thing is that, you know, if you believe as I do, things like the Tennessee Valley Authority were a good thing in terms of creating infrastructure of electricity in rural America. You know, we're going to have these unbelievable knowledge utilities that could do all kinds of good for society.
Yeah.
And this to me is really practical and sophisticated.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right. Optional though, as good it is for the public good, but it's optional. Okay. Sounds good. Ankash. Okay. Here you go. I thought we lost your screen. Right. We have a scorecard key here, and today we have 2 importance and 4 optionals. So thank you all for participating. Thank you for commenting. We really appreciate it. Come together tomorrow. Please join us tomorrow. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Nope, we lost Luda. Okay. Hey, John, can I
Still live here. Let me just.
John, can you end the